We have only bits and pieces of information, but what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
The bigger the toy, the smarter you better be to use it.
AI is the first tool in history that can make decisions by itself. All previous tools in history couldn't make decisions. This is why they empowered us. You invent an atom bomb. The atom bomb cannot decide to start a war, cannot decide which city to bomb. AI can make decisions by itself. And autonomous weapon systems can decide by themselves who to kill, who to bomb. The second thing is that AI is the first tool in history that can create new ideas by itself. This is a kind of spiritual enslavement that we won't be able to break out of because it understands us, it understands how to manipulate us, but we don't understand what is behind.
I just don't want to call it a panic. It is beyond an emergency. It's the biggest thing. Like I'm screaming. We always said, don't put them on the open internet. Don't teach them to code and don't have agents working with them until we know what we're putting out in the world, until we find a way to make certain that they have our best interest in mind. We're about to see mass job losses. We're about to see, replacements of categories of jobs at large. Yeah, it may take a year, it may take 7. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but it's about to happen. Are you ready?
Perhaps the biggest nightmare is the looming new industrial revolution.
The erosion of the middle class, already one of America's most serious problems, could get much worse with AI if we ignore it.
And that is, for the first time ever, they recorded jobs lost as a result of artificial intelligence. But this is where the rubber hits the road for a lot of people. It is replacing jobs.
I do believe that AI is going to replace a lot of what I'm calling white-collar clerical jobs. So the ones that are much more repetitive, the ones where people do the same task again and again and again, I think a good 30% of those roles could go away over 5 years.
You look at the reactions of humans to AI. I mean, we're either ignorant, people who will tell you, oh, no, this is not happening. AI will never be creative. They will never compose music. Like, where are you living?
All of the issues regarding fair pay are important, but the issue that's really struck a chord with me is AI, artificial intelligence. And it's hard to prioritize it as it really does seem the stuff of science fiction. Without that, this animated space between us, this sacrament, this holy experience of being human will be handed over to the machines and the 8 billionaires that own them.
We literally are starving. We can't afford milk. We can't afford eggs. We can't afford our rent.
Frustrating that we did everything they told us to do. We went to school, we got educated, we worked hard, we did everything they told us to do, and then when we're actually out in the world, they want to charge us $1,800 for a 1-bedroom apartment that really ain't shit. And then when they talk about, oh, the future is going to be great for you, you just got to work hard and stay down. How?
And I really don't know how to say this any other way. It even makes me emotional. We fucked up.
Some of you, right, have heard of things like Napoleon Hill, Kevin Trudeau, Law of Success, all that stuff. And that's a piece of it, right? There's all these different puzzle pieces. When I was young, I remember as a kid just see that the world is pretty fucked up. Like, the world is changing rapidly. The media is not portraying exactly, the truth. I watched some documentaries like Zeitgeist, Thrive. Those are some big ones back in the day. And I noticed that even those, they would talk about all these problems in the world, but there was really no solution at the end. The solution was something corny, like just love, or like we got to just, create new technology that will somehow save the day. It's like, check it out. What is the new technology being created? It's this AI. If we're not careful, we're going to turn ourselves into a surveillance state. I mean, look at China. Since 2014, they've had social credit score. I mean, do you want that here in America? I don't. You tell me. Like, they're pushing that in Canada now. They're going to push it in New York and in California. Have you been to New York recently? Have you gone around, not even by Times Square, but we were by the Empire State Building, myself and some of the guys that I work with, and we looked at every single street corner, and there was cameras. For me, right, I remember that as a kid, right? So I'm watching Zeitgeist, I'm watching these documentaries, and I'm learning about the state of the world and how it's really not what we thought it was. And I was, you see this whole rise in terrorism and all these wars, and it's like, why are we still having a war? Like, this is insane. You would have thought, with all the think tanks and all the intelligent people on the planet, we would have been able to at least solve some basic needs for us, like, why are we always at war, or why are kids going to bed hungry? It's interesting because then you start to realize that it's a giant profit machine. And so I remember reading the Creature from Jekyll Island, I remember looking at, that there's way more to history than we were taught. History is written by the victors, that old phrase. And so this really caused me to start to question what was going on. But then I realized I could question all I wanted, but if I was still broke and I didn't have the right network, it didn't matter. I started to realize that there's a higher level thinking that's required if you want to have success and you want to be effective. And I know so many people have heard this before, but how many of them actually know how to change their thinking? Very few. Right? We hear things like, oh, the secret to success is you must think and visualize your goals and, think at, the right thoughts, and then it will come in. Do you even know where your thoughts come from? I mean, let me ask you that. Do you know where your thoughts come from? Because guess who knows where your thoughts come from? The elite corporations that want to control your thoughts, so you buy their shit. It's consumerist culture. If you've never seen Century of the Self, I mean, that was a big one that changed things for me. So then I'm going through, learning from Ty, learning from Grant, learning from all these guys, and it was like I saw that there were some people who would listen to them and they would just have success. And there was a lot of people, like 98% of them, who just still struggle. And so it's not the fault of the teacher. It's the fact that we're still missing out on the fact of how the hell do you change your mind? And especially with where the world is headed. I mean, you have AI, automation, people are still sleeping on that. I mean, we're still in the baby phase of what's actually going to happen with AI, automation, robotics. I mean, just imagine this, right? When they cross policing and surveillance with drones and robots. They've already unveiled this. I made a post about this like 4 months ago, that they are unveiling this in New York City right now. And you got these self-driving cars and everything. I mean, imagine when the self-driving car is the police car, and now it's able to track exactly when you're speeding. Like, it's a very different world that we're entering, and especially for those of you who have kids. I mean, this is vital. How come you have 10 million people, let's say, who have read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, or his other books? How many of them actually got rich? Less than 1%? What's going on there? There's a fascinating audio by my friend Cameron. I don't have time to get into that specifically, but he explains how this whole idea of the law of attraction is so misunderstood. I mean, you see it, like, again, The Secret. How many people have watched The Secret? How many people have read Think and Grow Rich? And they're still broke. And they try hard. It's not like they're then just sitting on their ass going, oh yeah, well, I'm just gonna meditate and hope that, magically money rains from the sky. It's like a lot of people actually then also go work hard. Like work ethic, at least here in America, people still got some work ethic. I mean, there are a lot of people too who have the entitlement attitude, but people will learn about law of attraction. They start pushing themselves. They actually want to change, but guess what happens? They get to a certain level of income and then they hit it and then they sabotage themselves. So even with that, right? Even with having this knowledge and wisdom and everything, you're still hitting a wall. Now, we're at this very interesting time where for me, I'm realizing, okay, I have put in so much blood, sweat, and tears. I've built businesses. I mean, I've been surrounded by guys who are making 10, 20, 30 million. Some guys through e-commerce, selling the most random shit. And I'm like, why are you cracking the code so well? And me and a lot of the people around me are still struggling. And it became exposed to me that there's a specific tool you can use to reprogram your mind. So you can actually become really freaking smart. And especially with where the world's headed, being smart is probably the most important thing. I mean, being smart and having basic principles. You gotta have both. Because you could be really smart, you can be an asshole, and then you're gonna fuck yourself over. Or you could be smart and have principles and realize the common sense of like, hey, we gotta actually look out for people. Because if we don't look out for people, we're gonna end up in some weird dystopian future. Like, you ever see the Hunger Games or the Matrix? I mean, that's a future gone wrong. That's a future without principle. It's where we still allow this weird, dynamic. And what people don't realize is at the core of all of that, at the core of why society's fucked up, is education. I mean, the vast majority, back at the founding of America, and a lot of people don't know this, we had over a 90% literacy rate. People were very high vocabulary. There's a book that went around called Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Most people haven't read this. Most people don't even know this is a thing nowadays. And the Constitution. You ever read the US Constitution? It's very high vocabulary. And people nowadays have been systematically dumbed down. If you don't know this, you gotta do the research. And like Horace Mann is very interesting on the case study of this. John Taylor Gatto does a fascinating breakdown of this. But before you just go, study all that stuff, because without the context, you're not going to get it. So we've been systematically dumbed down, big time. Because guess what? The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all these different, elite groups, the Morgans, Carnegies, a lot of them pretend that they're all good and they got their foundations and stuff. Look at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You think they're actually doing good, or is it a tax shelter? Right? There's a lot more to it. I'm not going to go into that here. I'm not even going to say some of these words because this is going to end up on YouTube, right? And you have to be careful about what you say. But there has been a systematic dumbing down of people because the design of school is not to create thinkers, it's to create workers, and that's been quoted. Go look it up. And so we've all been now programmed from a young age to look to an authority to tell us what's going on, to not think for ourselves, to not even be able to think for ourselves. Because if you miss those first 7 years of your life, you're in trouble. The first 7 years, I mean, there's phrases, it goes everywhere, but I believe it's the Jesuits who first said it, or it's been quoted by them. Give me a child for the first 7 years, and I will show you the man. Pretty common sense when you really look at it. I mean, your parents' programming, or whoever raised you, got programmed into you, but also all the emotional charges to it. Their beliefs around money, their beliefs around relationships, their beliefs around what it takes to succeed. All of that got programmed into us. And now we're walking around with a bunch of outdated programming, basically programmed to be an employee, or if you're going to be an entrepreneur, to get up to a certain level of success, but not getting to the 10 million, 100 million, all that. And then you'll have these certain people who break through, and then you're like, oh my God, if they broke through, I can break through. Well, then why isn't everyone breaking through? It's kind of a cold, hard fact that you got to be really brutally honest with yourself. Like, if you were going to be really successful by now, you'd have some pretty clear telltale indicators of it. So for those people who can actually see this and you realize, like, hey, I do work really hard and I really do want to succeed, and I'm putting in the work to learn and study and all that, but it's still like not lining up, that's what the self-perfected group is for. Like, that's what the group is for. Because that group changed my life. I mean, I first found it when it was, 20 people. It was a pretty small group, but, so we were meeting in Denver right away. We went out to eat afterwards. I'm just having the most high-level conversations I never had. I've been around a lot of people. Like, I've been around people who, sold a company for $50 million. I was his right-hand man, Gerard Adams, for a couple of years. And that allowed me to meet, like, Lewis Howes, Tom Bilyeu, Eric Thomas, some great people. And they had high-level conversations. But I'm telling you, this group it's beyond that. Because there's a principle, there's a foundational principle. It's built on something different. It's unlike anything else out there. And so, and I'm sure you can, I'll my editor put this in the show notes of how someone can actually like learn about it and click and see how they can get in. And it's free. It's just, it's a specific type of person that's in there that actually sees, hey, the world is fucked up. We're going towards a cliff with AI automation, where the economy's headed, everything. We've got to be around the right people, but it's the right people who can actually change. And now here's to add to what makes it even more great, right? It's already in its own right, fucking awesome. Next level, though, is then the kids, the vision, the legacy behind it. So there's a kid, Max. This kid he's about to turn 7. Next month, he's turning 7. By the time he was 4 and a half, 5, he was learning how to program computers, build robots. This kid can use ChatGPT and actually use it to program. And I've seen, trust me, I used to be a tutor, been around a lot of parents that are, oh, my kid's a genius. My kid can read Harry Potter at a young age, whatever. One, usually not, because they're taught with phonics. And phonics that's a whole separate discussion. But the kid can sound like they can read, but then when you ask them what they read or if they can make sense of it, it's not there. Okay, this kid, Max, and these other kids in this group can learn. But it's really their parents have a specific tool and process to help the kids learn and be really smart. But this kid, Max, is literally programming robots. I mean, he's also learning sales. They also live on a homestead, so he knows how to drive an ATV and take care of animals. And he's a well-rounded kid. So he's not just this nerd kid who can program computers. It's way more than that. But I mean, that really impressed me. The kid's confidence, everything comes through. But when you can have a kid now, and then he reads Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, this was more like 6 months ago. In a 24-hour period, this kid read over 1,100 pages of books, and not kids' books. I mean, it was 3 books his dad bought him. I think there's one like Isaac Asimov book, so sci-fi book, Chronicles of Narnia, stuff like that. But this kid can read, and he does this most days, and that's amazing because you look at Elon Musk, Bill Gates, these kids, where they showed early signs of being a prodigy, right? Where they would read. I mean, Bill Gates would read for 5 hours a night just to spite his mom. If you read the book Hard Drive, you'll see the story. And so Bill would read because, again, the more you read, the more you understand the world, the more power you have. Really, the more power you have, the more you're able to anticipate issues. And so that was how Bill was raised. Again, Elon, Warren Buffett apparently read every single book at the Omaha Public Library at the time that he was 12 or 13. And so these kids from a young age were being programmed to be really freaking smart, and now they're billionaires. Okay, that was when they were 8 to 12. we got kids at age 5 doing this, and it's not just Max, his little sister. We got Aria down in Florida. We got a bunch of families up in Canada that are doing this, and the kids are anywhere from, let's say, 3-ish to like 16. And these kids are just showing signs of being way smarter than anything we've ever seen. And so when you look at the world and where it's headed, AI, automation, and all this, I mean, you tell me, you want yourself or your kids and your community to be really freaking smart and have principles and actually be aware that like, hey, we're all in this together and we gotta sort this shit out? Or do you just want, your kid to be some, I don't know, going through school, just trying to make things work? And look, if you gotta have your kids in school right now, like a lot of people that, are in the group, they're in a position. We realize it takes time to, let's say, create a plan to homeschool a kid. You don't have to fully homeschool a kid, but at least make sure that the kid is going to get straight A's so school's easy to them. So they can pick up any book and read it. Because you tell me, do you want to raise your kid and have them enter a world where they can't pick up a book on AI, or they can't pick up a book on computing, or learn how to code quickly, or learn math quickly? But then also all these other skills, sales, communication, persuasion. Like, try and read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. Like, that's a dense book. A lot of people can't read that, and then they go, oh, I'll just listen to the audiobook, I'll be fine. It's like, okay, you're missing the point of like, gotta be able to actually comprehend this stuff, like deep.
So how many people are there in the group right now?
We got 2,500 people last I checked, but it's invite only, and you gotta apply. It's free, but we have to make sure that the people in there, like, I've been part of groups. I've been part of communities that scaled way too fast and then they imploded. I've been part of groups that have no real central like thesis to how they're organized. So then they, it turns into all these fractions and stuff. But when you have a group with organizing principle of 1, become the best version of yourself, and 2, take responsibility to make that happen in the world. And guess what? When you do that, it involves you making more money. It involves you having a good life so people actually listen to you. I mean, this is why my wife and I, we got 10 acres of land and beautiful homes, because we're here to show people you can have the good life. You can make a lot of money. I mean, I made almost $1 million in ecom. It was great, but it was empty. I mean, I was selling pillows to people who didn't really need them. I'm not here to compromise anymore. And I can introduce you to hundreds of other people who are on the exact same page, but then people who actually crush in a business.
You had mentioned that not anyone can join this group. You mentioned that divorced couple story. Can you talk about that?
Okay, one of the guys in the group, there was a family that wanted to come in and work, and have get access to one of the tools. And one of the main guys in the group, he said to her, look, because she's like, look, I'm just gonna like divorce my husband, just get my mind right and just start a new relationship down the road, with someone find someone I'm more compatible with, and then we'll just work it out. And one of the guys, Cameron, shout out to him, man, he's got integrity. He said, if you divorce your husband and fuck your kids over like that, you're not getting in the group, because I know you guys can work it out. He didn't just say it, like, he knows their story. There's no physical abuse happening. It's just disagreements and how they saw things. And now guess what? 3 years later, they're thriving, homeschooling their kids. The dad runs a very successful company. The mom's able to stay at home, right? She's able to be retired, and now she gets to homeschool the kids and run their property. I mean, that's awesome. That's the kind of people in this group. It's not for everyone, but for the people who actually want to have an awesome life and be a role model for others, it's great. Like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. I mean, I'd also say you're the average of the 100 people you spend the most time around. So we got a really solid group, man. And it's the answer we've been looking for. Some people see it right away and it clicks. Other people, it takes some time, whatever. I would encourage you to just have it click ASAP, because where the world is headed, a lot of jobs are going to be replaced. If you don't know how to be entrepreneurial and you don't have a strong network, you're going to be in a lot of pain. You're going to be looking at that government check coming in, but all the strings attached to it. And so that level of community, and again, it's free. Just the only requirement is you actually have to give a fuck about the world and where it's headed, and you want to make a difference, because it's a decision point we're all going to face. We're either going to say, just let the government take over, or, let's just, chill and hope it works out, or just plug me in the metaverse, or, whatever, I'm fine with the government stipend, or, you say, oh, well, I'm just, going to hustle and make my own money, and, I'll just be successful or whatever. But your head's down, you're missing the fact that there's a giant storm coming. And you're either going to be in the eye of the storm and like walking through it together as a group, really strong, learn the lessons so we create an even better outcome, or you're going to be really damn sorry. And then a year from now, you're going to be reaching out going, hey, what was that group again? Because I've never seen anything like it. And there is nothing else like it. It's a very unique type of group, and it's a very unique set of people who founded it for the right reason. And so it's like those initial conditions, like this is in systems thinking. When you have initial conditions that are set up right, that's what dictates the outcome. The initial conditions are, we could actually change the world and make sure it's a better world for our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids. Next 20 generations. How do we do that? We, one, educate ourselves to be geniuses, like self-development on a whole nother level. Also, intellectual development on a whole nother level. Because we got to be smart to handle this world where AI and automation are coming in, and all these systemic issues. But then it's also legacy for the kids. It's also realizing you need business, and you need a business with a moat around it. You need a business that's ready for the future. Because anyone who's just in sales right now, anyone who's just making content, y'all haven't seen the deepfakes yet. Y'all haven't seen what deep learning is going to do with sales calls. I mean, I would be really concerned if that was your position. Like, it's a profit-driven system out there. The thing that we do with education, I mean, education, no one can argue with the fact that education is not going anywhere. And the standard system is the Titanic and it's sinking. We got the lifeboats to that. So you're around a bunch of people now who are making great money, but with purpose. So we're not just going to go spend our money at the club or on stupid shit. It's like, we're actually going to invest the money in things like my wife and I have a homestead. You know, we're learning sustainable practices, how to have a garden, how to preserve food, things like that. But then we grow in abundance for our community. So if shit goes sideways and there's a food shortage, guess what? We got a bunch of extra food and people notice that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, I mean, I'll have my editor, he can put a link to, apply to the group and connect further and learn more somewhere in the comments on this. So if it's on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, but then get involved. Like, you're either going to be pushed into it or you're going to make the decision to say, I'm ready for a change. Like, my life is not improving. I need it to get better. Where the future's headed, man, very important.